When people talk about Mara Jade as the Emperor's hand, it usually turns into something vague and mystical. The Dark Horse comic series, By the Emperor's Hand, doesn't do that. It's very direct about what her job was, where she went, and what went wrong. Mara works directly for Emperor Palpatine, completely outside the normal Imperial chain of command. She doesn't report to Darth Vader, and she isn't part of Imperial intelligence. Most people in the Empire don't even know she exists, and that's intentional. Palpatine uses her for problems he wants handled quietly, without attention or political fallout. She's trained to blend in, gather information, and remove threats before they become public issues. Sometimes that means assassination. Sometimes it means destabilizing criminal networks or exposing internal corruption. What matters is that Mara operates alone and without backup, because that's how Palpatine wants it. One of her most important missions takes place on Tatooine, inside the palace of Jabba the Hutt. On this assignment, Mara is using the alias Arika. She's embedded in Jabba's court as one of his dancers, which gives her access to conversations, guests, and movements inside the palace. The infiltration isn't long-term, and it isn't just surveillance. Palpatine sends her there with a very specific objective: kill Luke Skywalker. By this point, the Emperor already sees Luke as a serious threat. Luke is powerful, shares a direct bloodline with Darth Vader, and is moving independently of both the rebellion's command structure and his father's influence. Palpatine isn't interested in testing him yet or turning him. If the opportunity presents itself, he wants Luke eliminated. Mara is ready to carry out that order. There's no hesitation and no internal conflict shown here. This is exactly the kind of mission she's trained for. The problem is timing. Luke's confrontation with Jabba escalates almost immediately. Jabba is killed, the palace descends into chaos, and Luke escapes before Mara has a clean chance to act. The mission fails, not from hesitation or doubt on Mara's part, but because the situation collapses too fast for her to control. That failure sticks with her, but she doesn't have time to dwell on it. During this same period, Mara is also working against organized crime networks. She targets Dekuk, the leader of Black Nebula, an offshoot of the former syndicate Black Sun, who she's been tracking. She finds him and eliminates what she believes is her target. The problem: the man she killed was a decoy. The real Dekuk is still alive. That mistake matters, because Dekuk survives, and he has plans of his own. After the Emperor's death at Endor, the Empire doesn't disappear overnight. It fractures. Different Imperial remnant factions start fighting each other for control, resources, and legitimacy. In that environment, people like Mara stop being assets and start being liabilities. That's when Izard moves against her. Izard captures Mara and imprisons her, not for betrayal, but because Mara represents a type of authority Izard can't control. Mara worked directly for Palpatine, knew too much, and operated outside the systems Izard is trying to consolidate. To Izard, that makes her dangerous. Mara eventually escapes by using the Force to manipulate Ivak, one of her guards, into bringing her out of her cell. Once free, she navigates through hidden passageways that only she knows about, remnants of her time operating in Imperial facilities. What matters is what she does next. She doesn't try to rejoin the Imperial power struggle or align herself with any faction. She leaves Imperial space entirely and heads into the Outer Rim, looking for somewhere she can disappear. That's how she ends up working as a waitress in a small, forgettable cantina owned by Drig. She's hiding, plain and simple. She keeps her head down, avoids using the Force, and deliberately chooses a place where nothing important is supposed to happen. For a while, it works. No one is looking for the Emperor's hand in a place like this. Then members of Black Nebula show up to collect money Drig owes them. They aren't there for Mara, and they don't know who she is. They're just muscle, shaking down a small-time operator for debts. But the moment Mara sees their insignia, she knows. Deadliest. The man she thought she'd killed years ago is alive, active, and operating right here. And suddenly, hiding feels like the wrong choice. Mara doesn't go after Deadliest to save the galaxy or to stop criminal syndicates from expanding. She does it because she remembers who she is. The Emperor's hand, the predator, not the prey. She failed to kill the real Deadliest once before. That failure has been sitting unfinished in the back of her mind ever since. Now he's walked into her life again, and she has the chance to complete the mission properly. More importantly, she realizes that hiding isn't keeping her safe. It's just making her weak. As long as she stays passive, she'll always be prey, reacting instead of acting, waiting for the past to find her instead of confronting it. That's when she decides to act. Mara tracks down the real Deadliest and finishes the job she failed to complete years earlier. This time, there's no Emperor giving her orders and no Force voice guiding her decisions. She makes the call herself. She hunts him down, dismantles Black Nebula before it can fully establish itself, and ensures Deadliest's attempt to create a new criminal empire dies with him. That moment is the real turning point of the series, not because Mara becomes a hero, and not because she suddenly changes who she is. It's the first time she uses her skills purely on her own judgment. She's no longer acting as an Imperial asset or following someone else's strategic vision. She's deciding what matters and dealing with it herself. The Luke Skywalker kill command is still there, unresolved, sitting in the background like static she can't tune out. By the Emperor's hand doesn't give Mara a redemption arc. It doesn't even give her clarity about what she wants to become. What it does is strip away everything she used to rely on. The Emperor's orders, Imperial infrastructure, her role as the hand, and force her to figure out what's left. What's left is someone who refuses to be prey. She's still alone. She's still hunted by Imperial remnants who see her as a liability, and rebels who'd kill her on sight if they knew who she was. But she's moving forward on her terms now, making her own calls, choosing her own missions. This is the foundation. Without this period, without Mara learning to operate as herself rather than as Palpatine's instrument, none of what comes later works. Not her eventual alliance with the New Republic, not her relationship with Luke Skywalker, not her transformation into something other than what the Empire made her. This is where Mara Jade begins.